Jonathan always brings us something cool, and today did not disappoint. What do we call it?
We call it the Icon Thriftmaster because that's what the Motor Series was on the originals, and frankly, because I liked the font. And when the trucks first came out, I think for the first 2 years, on that stock Chevrolet side badging, it said Thriftmaster, and then they changed it to 3100.
Did they call it the Thriftmaster because normally they go with Eliminator, Intruder, Turbine, whatever, something. Thrift, you know, you're kind of going another direction there, but were they saying that because it was good on fuel?
Yeah, so it's good on fuel, and it was in entry-level vehicles and mostly trucks. So it's more about utility, cheap, and thrifty.
Yeah. And is it, I know you have an ironic sense of humor and you underplay everything, but is there anybody, I mean, was there ever any consideration given to saying, we're going to ask people to pay $200,000 for something that has the word thrift?
All I knew is that the trollers were going to chew my ass about it, and it just kind of was what it was.
Right. But it's also kind of, with a name like Smuckers, you got to be good.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because everyone else is like ZRXZR.
Right.
Limited.
It's a lot of R's in the
Same with the
automotive
derelicts,
world.
you know, why are you going to spend that much money on a car? It's called
the
a
derelict, right?
Idiot.
So you do what you always do. You do the satin and the understated, but it's the details, guys. You really got to see when we cut to the interior of the car.
Just
the steering wheel,
the
is
mirrors,
wrapped,
the door handles, just everything is.
It's always the hardware. It's always just the brackets. I'm looking at the bracket on the steering column, which is a piece of machined aluminum with, you know, inset Allen bolts in there. It's amazing.
The gauge clusters look like you've got a machine of multiple layers.
I always love these trucks, the shape of them. I've restored 5 or 6 of them like dead stock. And within the first 2 miles of driving, I'm over it because they just suck. I mean, they don't steer, stop, accelerate. They just don't do anything very well, but they had such a cool look. And when this was still something I was trying to still call a hobby and pissing off all my neighbors in my house in Sherman Oaks, I was in the garage underneath one of these, literally stuck trying to get the bed rails in the back. Mm-hmm. And some friends were coming over for lunch, and I just heard footsteps coming up the driveway, and I asked that first set of legs, could you give me a hand and pick up the back of this truck? And I climbed out and introduced myself, and that became my wife, Jamie.
Wow.
So they've always, like, there's something about this truck that's been important to me. So we bought one and we laser scanned it from front to back using some of the studio technologies for CGI, where we can reverse engineer and get this into CAD immediately. And then that allowed us to engineer all the geek out points of CNC'd work and the nickel work and the redesign the dash and get modern HVAC and nav. And with this truck too, we kind of wanted to push the envelope into sort of a soft entree, like you were saying, into cars. What's our first 2-wheel drive, but it's still a truck. But performance-wise, we wanted to kind of push the envelope in more of a sports car direction. And then also more kind of modern car corruptions. So things like, you know, there's no visible switches or anything. It's all done. It's a CAN bus networked electrical system, and everything is controlled through a Kenwood touchscreen using ISIS power electrical. So it's web enabled. It's a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yeah,
has power windows, but we didn't want to jump the shark and put your typical street rod switches.
I spoke to the guys at ISIS,
handles.
and they got some really, really cool.
Yeah, they're
technology.
state of the art.
Just
really
completely rewired.
It has
cars.
power windows.
Oh yeah,
but
there's
has
no
the
buttons.
cranks
in
there as
so
well.
we kept it looking old, but then you just nudge that crank up, it goes up, and you nudge it down, or you can do it from the remote.
The crank is the power switch.
See, again,
and then like the rear view mirrors, those light up with the turn signal diodes like a modern car, but they're still the old school 40s Pete mirrors.
Even in the bed, I see on the, looks like you stamped or put icon into the.
That and the hubcap. So we got tricky there because I can't afford stamp tooling. So we acid etch the steel. 17s, and then there's CNC billet, so we get the light weight and can fit the monster brakes because we're running 6-piston front, 4-piston rear wallwoods with ABS Master.
And what were you doing for the suspension?
Art Morrison's my hero, so this is running in platform the best. Art Morrison's chassis specific to this project, so TIG welded tubular independent front, 4-link rear using Johnny joints, not Heims. The new JRI tunable shocks. Good stuff. And then we're running a 5.3, which is part of GM's new E-Rod program. So it's a full emissions certified motor. And then
Until you put the supercharger on.
no, it still is, because that's a carb certified Magnuson air-to-water blower.
I see this basically this computer over here is part of that ISIS.
Correct. So that's one of the sub-modules for
wiring
the
system
ISIS.
and the
And it's
CAN bus
cool because,
system.
you've got a
Really
master
cool
system and then 2 splits, and they're Cat 5 networked, and that's it. And then we just run 22 gauge wired all the circuits.
You have the old school black rubber hosing, but the really cool high-end brackets
Yeah, a lot of
and
aircraft
connectors and
fittings and
aircraft
fixtures
and crimp-on stuff and all the hose clamps and all the clamps in general, just really cool and really high-end.
Well, I want them to be utilitarian, so if they're just bling and they're not adding durability or longevity or function, then screw it, we just won't go there.
So what is something like this run base-wise, price-wise?
Well, what we're going to do with these, which is kind of something new for us, is I've learned from experience that designing it, developing it, and launching it is one thing. Then you have a whole nother 50%, which is figuring out how the hell to build them remotely effectively. So this time we're selling 5 of them for 2014 production, and they're all balls out loaded. The client picks matte or shiny, what color, what bed wood, which color for the bison hide, blown or naturally aspirated, and a T56 6-speed or automatic. Otherwise they come loaded, and they're 230 to 256 within the range of those options. Then from that experience, hopefully we get remotely efficient and can find a more rational price point and pull out of the options out and give it a
It's
slightly
still,
more realistic
in a world, I always have this conversation, it sounds cheap for what you're getting.
It's one of these things you really just got to see, like every bolt head, everything
it's
on
no matter
there
how you
is
look
just,
at it. Well, one guy says we're out of our mind and we're idiots and we're bankrupt. The next guy says, well, I had a truck like this built in a one-off shop and it was $500,000 and it won't even idle and it sucks. So it's a no-brainer to him.
Well, but here's the deal: like you're going to make 5, you're going to sell 5. Right?
Yeah.
So you're doing it right. Price point's 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you should
And
raise
at
the
5,
cost.
like we could almost have asked whatever, because there's always
Right.
going to be 5 guys out there that are nutty enough to drink the Kool-Aid and hop in. But the irony is, even at that crazy money, I doubt the first 5 will even be profitable.
Matt, you stand behind.
Okay.
That's your job.
Although
I
it's
just wanna
side
look-
exhaust, so.
Oh, look at this. Every bit. Look at that. Look at the lights. Every bit. I just love,
The fasteners are $14 each.
So if you keep your foot out of it, it's
Yeah.
mellow. It's a short exhaust, but it's all TIG stainless ceramic coated with dual MagnaFlows and a crossover. And I may need to change that because that's too low. I think I'm gonna have to go up and over and do a rear dump. So I'm bottoming out on that. That's the other cool thing though with this
Sounds
stance.
great.
JRI has this new system that, like, duh, why didn't someone think of that before? Where there's a hydraulic element that lifts, there you go,
sorry.
that lifts the car independent of the coilover, just the mounting point, and you get 5 inches of control in the lift.
Just
So
so
it's
you can
not like
pull it in and out of
airbags.
the
Where
driveway.
yeah,
Right.
brilliant.
the other thing that Jonathan does so well is, you take an old car and they didn't have any, especially a truck, they didn't have any rules back then. And now you have to have a light on your license plate. You have to have turn indicators, stuff like that. But it didn't exist in the past. So where do you put it so it works, but you don't really see it?
And that's such a fun part
If you
of
look at the rear license plate, I can see that there's lights that illuminate the plate.
Yeah.
And your
reverse
reverse lights are
into
built
the
right.
bed rail.
Into the rail, but
the
these
bed rail.
lights just look like cool little billet fasteners. And again, like what you've done with the turn indicator.
Look at the controls he has, just the lower.
Yeah, the originals,
you
they
just-
had
right.
the tailgate chains that would just sit there and clap
Right,
and beat the
right.
shit out of the truck.
Right.
So these just go in, and then we did stainless elbow joints for that. I stole from the SLR, the SLR race, the Black Series. That's their gas cap, which I thought was sexy as all hell.
Yeah, and just put it right into the bed.
Yeah, then that allows me to put a 31-gallon stainless tank in the back with a factory GM fuel pump and sump and rollover valve and baffles, which helps with the weight. So like when we were autocrossing this thing, thank God I had a full tank, because
The
with this
rear
much
end
power,
would
the
just
ass
come
just
around.
wants to come around.
Now,
on it.
when I was talking to you at SEMA, you had your electric bike in the back.
Yeah.
Quickly tell us about the electric bike.
Okay, so this is a fun project that just kind of came together organically. I was up at the McCall's event up at Pebble Beach earlier this year, and I met this 22-year-old guy named Andrew who had come up with this design, and was literally, the paint wasn't dry on his first proto. We started talking, I dug what he was doing, he asked what I did, turned out he was an Icon fan. I started helping him find resources for plating and powder and a sand caster and different details.
Is this cast aluminum, or
Yeah.
you machine it to make
No,
it
no,
look
it's
cast, like you hit it with a
sand
bead
cast
blaster?
aluminum, and then media.
Okay.
And then that hides the BMS system and the battery. And then you're just power on, power off, and headlight function, and then your range indicator and the headlight. And they're just so much fun.
It
Yeah.
really,
And you're gonna
again,
sell those?
but
Yeah, we just started selling these
what
last
do these
month.
things sell for?
They're $49.95.
Wow. Wait a minute, 49K?
No, $4,995.
Okay, good.
$5
I was gonna
grand.
say,
They're $5 grand.
That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
very
it's-
Yeah, it's
reasonable.
kind of right in the sweet spot for a good quality e-bike.
It's really nice, and again, Jonathan's just one of these guys where I if you said Jonathan laid out your living room, or Jonathan picked out your daughter's prom dress, or
I don't know about that, but
no, you have an eye for design. I mean,
thank
you do. You're very good at it, and I love you because you're so detail oriented. And so, if you do a bicycle, it's going to look cool. If you do a truck, it's going to look cool. When you do a Saab, it's gonna look cool. And we'll talk off the air about your sandcaster, because I need something.
Of course you do.
aluminum. You'll probably know this. The old Los Angeles street lamps, the ones that had all the ornate
Yeah,
whatever, and it's
definitely, yeah.
beautiful. But I found a couple which I love, but they're all couple the spears are broken off, and I need a sand casting, and it's difficult. It's more
we can
difficult
put that together.
than I thought. All right, Jonathan, why don't you throw out the website if anyone wants to go and just cruise and have a glass of wine and see some really cool stuff.
Icon4x4.com or iconelectricbike.com, and you're welcome to pick up the phone and give me a call, 818-280-3333.
And you go to our website and you can check out all this stuff, because we're going to cover it very well.
All the photos will be up on our Facebook page as well.
So, until next time, this is Adam for Matt and Jonathan saying, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.